Hey everyone, it's December 17th, 2024. And man, are there some big stories breaking today.
You know it.
I am excited to dive into these with you.
Yeah, let's get to it.
We've got, well, first up is Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's making some waves again, you know.
Making waves, what else is new?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But this time, with these comments she made about like natural phenomena.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, scientists, and even some of her own party are just like, what is she talking about?
Yeah, it seems like she might not have been paying attention in science class back in the day.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of have to go back and be like, okay, so what exactly is happening here?
Right, so it is interesting to look at all of this in context. I mean, we all know Green has a history of saying some pretty out there stuff. But, you know, in this day and age of social media, the pressure on public figures, like politicians, to be accurate is just insane. Every little thing they say can be like taken out of context or blown way out of proportion, and then boom, it's all over the internet.
Yeah.
And everybody's got an opinion.
And those opinions are usually very strongly worded.
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah, so it's like this constant pressure cooker.
Exactly.
And then you have like the scientific community and all these fact-checking groups, and they're pushing back hard against anything they see as misinformation.
They're not messing around.
No, they're not. But then on the flip side, you've got her supporters, and they love it.
Right.
They love her being outspoken and challenging what they call, you know, the establishment. So it's this clash, these two different ideologies just battling it out online.
And we're all stuck in the middle.
Right, exactly.
It's not just some online drama, it has real consequences.
Oh, for sure.
This kind of controversy could lead to some serious investigations, like ethics investigations.
Yeah.
Media outlets will be digging into everything she's ever said or done.
And come on, we all know how brutal the media can be.
Oh, absolutely ruthless. And then think about what it could do to her chances of getting reelected in 2024.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's like watching a political thriller play out right on our phones.
I know, right? Full of twists and turns.
And the ending is anyone's guess.
Okay, well, moving on from politics for a second, let's talk about something that's been sending shockwaves through the world of social media.
Hit me with it.
TikTok. It's fighting for its life here in the US.
No way, really?
Yes. It's facing a potential ban that could wipe it off. Like every American's phone.
Seriously, that's crazy. I mean, so many people use TikTok.
I know, 170 million users in the US alone. And it's come down to this. They've filed an emergency appeal with the Supreme Court, hoping for like a last-minute save.
Wow, that's intense.
It is, and they're basing their argument on the First Amendment,
Yeah.
saying that this ban is like a direct attack on their freedom of speech.
That's a bold move.
Yeah, but then you have the government, right? And they're countering by saying, no, this isn't about free speech, it's about national security.
Yeah.
And they're concerned about TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, which is based in China.
Ah, okay, I see where they're coming from.
Right. But it's not just some corporate battle or a geopolitical chess match. There are millions of content creators who depend on TikTok. Like, it's their livelihood, their way of connecting with the world, sharing their talents, you know.
Yeah, so many people have built their entire careers on TikTok.
And if it suddenly disappeared, it would be like a digital earthquake.
Oh, definitely.
And then you've got the Supreme Court stuck in the middle.
Talk about pressure.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, they have to make a decision that could literally reshape the digital world as we know it.
How do they even begin to balance something like national security with the First Amendment in the age of global social media?
Right. It's a question with no easy answers.
And whatever they decide could set a precedent for how all tech is regulated in the future.
Everything from data privacy to what content is allowed online.
This is huge.
Huge. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Okay, for our last deep dive today, let's switch gears completely and talk about something that's been weighing heavily on everyone's minds. Remember that horrific drone attack on the U.S. military base in Jordan earlier this year?
Oh, yeah, it was awful. Those poor service members.
It was devastating. 3 U.S. service members were killed and over 40 were injured.
It was a terrible tragedy.
And there have been some major developments in the investigation.
Oh, really? Fill me in.
2 men have been officially charged for their alleged involvement in the attack.
Wow, so they finally have some leads.
Yeah, and one of the suspects is an Iranian-American named Mahdi Mohammad Sadeghi, and the other is an Iranian national, Mohammad Abedinejad Fabadi, who is believed to be connected to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
That's a pretty big development.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting. The FBI, through some very meticulous digital forensics, were able to trace the drone's navigation system back to a company in Iran.
You're kidding.
Nope. and they uncovered this complex web of technology transfer.
Wow, that sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does, doesn't it?
You're right.
And it's causing quite a stir in the intelligence and defense communities. I mean, think about it. They discovered that U.S.-made components were being illegally funneled to Iran's military.
So they were using our own tech against us.
Essentially, yes.
That's
A
terrifying.
huge concern because it exposes these vulnerabilities in our own export control systems.
Right, and it shows just how determined some actors are to get their hands on American technology, especially for developing weapons.
It's like we're living in a real-life espionage thriller with global consequences.
And it looks like this is just the tip of the iceberg. This case could really change how we regulate the export of sensitive technology. Like, it could affect everything from aerospace to artificial intelligence.
Oh, wild. Like we're all playing this global game of chess where one move can have these huge ripple effects across borders and industries. But okay, so we've got a congresswoman's controversial statements, a social media platform fighting for its life, and a drone attack with international implications. How does this all connect? What's the bigger picture here?
That's a good question. If you look at all of these stories from a wider perspective, there are some common threads. They all highlight the growing power of information, the responsibility that comes with it, and that struggle, that constant struggle to find the balance between individual freedom and national security, especially with how fast the world is changing.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So like with Representative Green, it's a reminder of how quickly misinformation can spread,
Yeah.
especially when it's coming from someone who has a big platform and a lot of followers.
Exactly. And then it makes you think about what social media companies should be doing. Do they have a responsibility to stop the spread of misinformation? Is it ethical to allow harmful content to just float around freely? Those are tough questions.
And then with TikTok, you have one app that's become this battleground for free speech, economic interests, and national security concerns all at once. It shows how interconnected everything is today. One decision in one country can have global consequences.
And the drone attack shows the dark side of how technology is advancing. It's a reminder that even technology meant for good can be used as a weapon with devastating consequences.
It is fascinating, but also kind of unsettling to see how these stories, while seemingly separate, all touch on these fundamental themes of power, responsibility, and how we navigate a world where technology is changing so rapidly.
It brings us to a crucial question we all need to think about. In a time with so much information, so much technology changing so fast, how do we ensure accuracy and that information is being used responsibly? How do we safeguard individual freedoms while also keeping our nation secure? There are no easy answers.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, right? Constantly having to adjust as the world throws us curveballs.
You got it. Critical thinking is more important than ever. We can't just blindly accept information. We have to question everything, look at things from different perspectives, learn to separate fact from fiction.
That's what we're trying to do here with the Videntis podcast. We want to help you, our listeners, make sense of this complex world. We don't have all the answers, but we can give you a framework for understanding what's happening and how to make informed decisions.
We want you to be active participants in shaping the future, not just watching it happen.
I think one of the most important things we can take away from today's deep dive is the power of seemingly small actions. A congresswoman's words, a social media company's policies, even something like the illegal transfer of a single drone component. These actions can have ripple effects far beyond their initial scope.
I totally agree. It shows that each of us, in our own way, has a role to play in shaping the course of events. We can choose to be informed, to engage in thoughtful discussions, and to hold those in power accountable.
So let's get back to the Supreme Court's decision on TikTok. What are your thoughts on that?
This is really interesting because the case could actually hinge on a legal precedent from all the way back in 1969, the Red Lion broadcasting case.
Wait, are you serious? Something from over 50 years ago could determine the fate of a social media giant. Tell me more about this.
So the Red Lion broadcasting case led to something called the Fairness Doctrine. This required broadcasters to present different viewpoints on controversial issues that were important to the public. Now, the Fairness Doctrine itself was done away with in 1987, but the idea behind it, ensuring a balanced and diverse media landscape, that's still relevant today.
I see. So the Supreme Court could look at traditional broadcasting and online platforms like TikTok and say they both have a responsibility to make sure there's a diversity of viewpoints and to stop the spread of harmful content.
Exactly. That's one way they could look at it. They might also consider whether the government can actually force TikTok, a private company, to host content they see as objectionable or a threat to national security. That gets tricky with the First Amendment and how it protects private businesses.
This is complicated. So they have to weigh the potential harms of misinformation and foreign influence against freedom of speech and private enterprise. What a tough decision.
It really is. And whatever they decide here in the US, it could have a domino effect on how other countries decide to regulate these big social media companies. It could set a precedent for online content moderation globally.
This case is like the perfect example of how law, technology, and national security are all tangled up in the digital age. It feels like we're making the rules up as we go along, trying to deal with these challenges that have never existed before.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to stay informed and engaged. We can't just sit back and watch while these huge decisions are being made. We need to be part of the conversation, speak up about our concerns, and hold those in power accountable.
Totally agree. Our voices do matter. Okay, let's go back to the drone attack for a minute. You talked about how the FBI traced the drone's navigation system back to that company in Iran. How did they actually figure that out? It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie.
It kind of is. It was a mix of super high-tech digital forensics and just good old-fashioned detective work. Basically, the FBI took the wreckage of the drone and found pieces of its navigation system. They were able to pull data from those pieces, which showed the specific code and algorithms used to control how the drone flew.
So they found the drone's digital fingerprints.
You got it. And those fingerprints pointed them right to this Iranian company that specializes in drone tech. They kept digging and found out that this company had been buying US-made parts illegally, breaking export control laws, and using those parts to make their drones even more powerful.
So this one attack exposed a whole network of illegal technology transfer. It could have implications for national security far beyond this one incident.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what other vulnerabilities are out there, just waiting to be discovered.
That's the scary part. It really highlights the need to stay ahead of the game. We need to make our export controls stronger, invest in serious cybersecurity, and work with other countries to fight these threats.
It's crazy to think that the news never stops. The world keeps changing at a pace we've never seen before. From politics to technology to global conflicts, there's always something happening.
It can feel overwhelming trying to keep up with it all, for sure.
And that's exactly why we do the Videntis podcast. We're here to help you understand what's going on in the world. We want to give you context, insights, and the tools to be informed, engaged citizens.
Knowledge is power. The more we understand the forces that shape our world, the better we can make informed decisions and work towards a better future.
So to everyone listening, keep asking questions, stay curious, and never stop learning. The world is full of mysteries, but with an open mind and a desire to learn, we can make sense of it all.
And who knows, we might even have some aha moments along the way.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the news. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.